Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see all of you here on this beautiful day in our neighborhood. It's great to share our rich history with you. Before we get started on our presentations, if you would like a snack or a drink while we're doing the presentations, please feel free to go back there and help yourself. They're located on that kitchen wall back there. Or if you want to get up during the presentation and get a snack, that's fine too. Another thing, when we have these presentations today, if any of you have any questions while they're doing their presentations, don't be afraid to raise your hand and ask the question at that time, because maybe till we're all over with the presentations, you forgot what you wanted to ask. So without any further ado, we'll be on our way with our first presentation. Candace? Here you go. Sorry.
That's okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Candace Mance-Merkel. Thank you for coming. And today we're going to be doing the 200 block of Main Street. I'm doing the south side of Main from Walnut Street to Factory/Center Street. Can everybody hear me? Is it okay? All right. There were quite a few businesses located in this center building, in the building that's there. It's now apartments, and it was usually a business on the first floor, and the owners lived on the second floor. The first business that occupied the building was the office of Dr. John Brown. He, his wife Mary, and son Roy are listed as living there in the 1900 census. Later, through the 1900s, there were grocery stores. Some of the grocery store owners were Jane Mertz, Irvin Daubert, and Elmer Worley. For a brief time in the late 1960s, although I'm the only person who remembers this, there was a Japanese laundry that operated out of the office, out of the front of that building. Later, it was a women's clothing store, first owned by Natalie Grimm Schleicher. It was operated as the Natalie K Shop from the early 1960s through 1965. Then the shop was called Candy's Fashions, not my name, my mother named it, and it was run by me, Candace Mance-Merkel, and that was from 1965 to 1968, and the shop was later owned and run by Pat Knoll. Three houses down the street, Charles Davies, an insurance man, lived there with his wife Alice and daughter Hazel. Charles was the grandson of Owen Jones. Jones was the first person to discover slate outside of Slatington in 1845. Albert Litzenberger and later George Werner had a plumbing and hardware business about mid-block. Then we go to Obie Kaiser. Obie Kaiser had a liquor store where he sold wines, brandies, and gin. And that store was located across the street from what was then Town Hall, and I think Mike is going to be talking about that. Next was a barber shop. The first barber shop was owned by, not the first in the town, was owned by John and then Lansford Larry Sellers. Sellers originally had his barber shop in the lower block of Main Street closer to the railroad station. He later moved to the mid 200 block. One of his sons, Lansford Larry Sellers, learned his trade from his father and started cutting hair, standing on a stool at the age of 12. And he later taught other town barbers, including a barber who's currently still in practice, Patsy Frieda. A new barber shop opened at the residence of Henry Jones, also on Lower Main Street in this same block, and Henry's son, Russell Jones, operated his barber shop at this location through the 1960s. Harvey Steinmetz was the owner of and operator of the Slatington Star Company. This company was located at 263 Main Street. Possible entrance to the back of this property was on Factory Street. He sold Star and Durant cars. Okay, Dr. G.H. Mosteller had a neural therapy, optometry, and chiropractic office in the last brick building on the street. And that brick building is still standing, and up until, I think, last year, there was stained glass, not a business, but a workshop in that building. Dr. Mosteller, in 1930, Dr. Mosteller's office and workrooms were gutted by a fire to the extent of about $4,000, with additional damage to his residence next door, as well as to Jones's barbershop. The January 11th, 1934 Slatington News had an article about Dr. Mosteller stating he was installed as president of the Lehigh Valley Optometry Association. Mrs. Mosteller, his wife, had a millinery store also in this brick building. She sold hats, bonnets, and made-to-order millinery goods. This business also served as the Mostellers' residence, and I actually remember them living there. Eli Klitzner owned an antique shop also in this building. In the store, Mosteller's office, Klitzner's antique store, Benninger's antique store, they were all on the left side of the building if you're facing the brick building, and there are two large glass windows. That's where Klitzner and Benninger had their antique shop, and Arthur Benninger's shop was there from the 1960s through the 1970s. On September 13th, 1957, there was a fire and an explosion in this block. The block left 14 people homeless and hospitalized one woman. The fire consumed 3 houses and damaged a 4th. The homes destroyed were numbers 261, 267, and 269. The home at 253 experienced extensive water damage. The cause of the fire was an oil burner malfunction. I actually experienced this fire and explosion. I was on my way home from school at the Roosevelt School Building, right over there. I was 1 block away, just stepped on my front porch. They used to let kids go home for lunch. I was on my way home for lunch, and the building exploded, and it was an incredible fire. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Tim.
Hello, hello. I'm going to share with you some businesses that existed, a couple still do, but most of them don't, on the north side of Main Street, on the 200 block, from Walnut Street, from North Walnut Street up. But I'm only going to hit 3 residences, I'm going to call them, 3 locations. And we have other committee members that are going to share other businesses farther up the street. The first business was on the corner. If you go out Walnut Street here, you stop at the light, and you look over diagonally to your left, just to the left of Walnut Street. That first business was the U.S. Hotel. You ain't ever seen it. I ain't ever seen it. Even you ain't ever seen it, Paula. Even you ain't ever seen it.
Wraps place is now.
Huh?
Is that where the ID wraps place is now? Was that where that was?
Yep, that's good. If you have any questions, incidentally, I put this chart up here in case I get verhuddled or lose you or something. You just say, Tim, you're not talking right. You're supposed to be talking about hotels or garages or whatever. Okay, the U.S. Hotel. The U.S. Hotel was built in 1865. Now this is when Slatington starting to boom. You know, they were incorporated as a borough in '64. So this was one of the things that were going on here. How many hotels do you think were in Slatington in 1874? Huh? Guesses?
4.
4? Do I hear?
7.
7. I see somebody in the back waving their hands. 8. 8 hotels in Slatington? Come on now, Louise. Where would there be 8 hotels in Slatington? Are there any now?
1. If you call that.
And what's it called?
Slate Hill.
No, that's not a hotel. A hotel, lots of rooms, 4 stories high.
Fine lodging.
Huh?
Fine lodging.
Yeah, but we all knew it as the Neff House, of course. So there's 1 there, and somebody thinks there are 8. Is that what I heard, bro? But somebody said 7, and that person was correct.
Get out.
There were 7 hotels in Slatington at the time. Okay, there were several owners. I don't know why. I followed up the hotels and in the Slatington Newses and at the courthouse, but it seems like every 5 years or so, hotel owners change. And I tried to figure out why. I couldn't. I was thinking, well, there's probably only 1 or 2 reasons. Either it was such a great investment that everybody wanted to get into it. You know, maybe it was the apple of the day. I don't know, or else it was a lousy business and nobody wanted to stay in it, and they couldn't wait to sell it off. But there were a lot of different owners. I'm supposed to have a photo there of the U.S. Hotel.
There. It says the ad.
Yeah.
The ad.
Okay.
Yeah, here's the
But go back to that. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Well, I'm going to read my sheet. I think that's interesting because it says on there, having taken possession of this well-known and popular house, we have fixed it up, and it's now the most approved and convenient, in the most convenient style, and are we now prepared to accommodate permanent boarders and transient guests. So that was one of the ads. Another ad here, which I don't have a picture of. I think that's the end of my photos for the U.S. Hotel. But I found this ad where B.F. Peter was the proprietor. This was in 1880. And this is, here's what Peter says, refitted and remodeled. And the proprietors determined to spare no pains to make it in every way a first-class hotel. So everybody's tuning it up. Everybody's modernizing. Everybody's getting it great. There's another sale I'm not going to bother you with. Here, if you listen and you heard Candace, she talked about this guy named Obie Kaiser on her side of the street. Well, he sold booze. That's what he was, an alcohol, sold alcohol, they call it. So, but here he bought the hotel. Mr. Obie Kaiser, the wholesale liquor man, who will on the first day of April take possession of the U.S. Hotel in Lower Slatington. But he will carry it on with his liquor business, and accordingly has gone to Philadelphia and New York to lay in a splendid stock of pure liquors. So that's when Obie got a hold of it. Now, here's Obie again in the newspaper. He has thoroughly renovated it, and he has employed Mr. Robert A. Gross, a colored gentleman, formerly of the Senate House in Atlantic City, as a porter. So they're going top of the line here. They're going full bore. Here, another Enos Roseberry, a well-known traveling man of Philly, has taken the United States Hotel for a term of years. The hotel is now undergoing thorough repairs. Popular place, and it's only one of 7. Can you imagine what the other 6 might be like? They had a fire at the U.S. Hotel. It seems like hotels were primed for fires. You remember the Bittner House? That went up in flames. So the U.S. Hotel, here there was a fire in 1885. And I found this article sort of humorous in a sense, but serious in another. And here's what the article says. The U.S. Hotel partly burned. Our unusually quiet village was thrown into the wildest state of excitement on Saturday evening by the announcement of fire. Fire is something very unusual in the borough. Boy, they got me fooled, but a little bit of research I've done, there was a lot of fires. And the conduct of many on Saturday night show we ought to be thankful for this fact. And it goes on to say that everybody rushed to the fire, and they made fun of the firemen, and the conduct of many was a burning shame on the community, and we hope this will never happen again. So that's when they had this fire. Now that fire was in 1885, and you're going to hear that the hotel changed to a new name and to a new look very shortly. And I couldn't figure out why it was. Yeah, there were a lot of remodels, but all of a sudden, which we'll get to. Just a minute. Now I want to tell you about the Hatfields and the McCoys of Slatington. The Hatfields and the McCoys. There was a fella, you might have been at the last downtown 100 block presentation, named David Williams. In my research, he, if not the wealthiest, certainly one of the wealthiest slate quarry manufacturing men in the town. Well, he had a guy named Henry Fulmer. Henry Fulmer was from Easton, and he had money, and he invested. And it seemed like wherever David Williams invested, Henry Williams invested, or vice versa. But, which we're going to get to. Here's an article in the paper about Henry Fulmer. Henry Fulmer is erecting a large new shed in the rear of the present shedding of larger dimension. It is also rumored that he will extend the U.S. Hotel building so that it will contain upwards of 100 rooms. which would also be the largest hotel in town. And we're going to hear more about these guys, these Hatfield, and what I call Hatfield and McCoys, these Williams and Fulmer. Now here's a sale. Then there was a sale in 1891 of the U.S. Hotel. It says this: the fixtures of the U.S. Hotel will be sold at public sale on Saturday. The stock comprises bar and dining room furniture, bedroom suites, carpets. A farewell dance will be held in the evening. So that's now Henry Williams David Williams and Henry Fulmer, just a couple of articles. They were constantly spatting. Here's an article that says, the case of Henry versus David was at trial this week. Mr. Fulmer claims he has suffered by reason of water running from Mr. Williams' yard into the cellar of the U.S. Hotel. David Williams, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you, David Williams built the house right next to the house is still there. And he built several other homes, but he built that house right next door. So that's why they're spatting. Now here's another case why they went to court. David Williams said Mr. Fulmer entered upon his property and tore a fence. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of the U.S. Hotel, and we're going to leave that. Okay, we're going to mention this guy Fulmer again, but we're going to leave that, and we're going to go to the Arlington Hotel. This hotel replaced the U.S. Okay, there it is. But that doesn't show you the difference. Some of these others show you the difference. There she goes. That's the Arlington. Now think back what the U.S. looked like. You know, you couldn't hold a candle to that one, but that's the one photo of the Arlington Hotel on the corner. There's another photo of it. There's another photo of it across from Candace's place. There's another photo of it across from Candace. And that's... No, go back to that, please. This is David Williams' house on the left, which is still there. And we're going to talk about a business in there. And this is the Arlington. Do we hear any more of the Arlington, Kelly?
Nope.
Huh?
That was it.
So if you've seen photos, or if you were here the last time for the Bittner house, I think you'll agree with me that they're sort of in the same glamorous category. Okay, here. Somewhere I have an article about the feud. David Williams, this Rich Slate fella, had built 5 homes in town, but he had a grandson who I think grew up on the one up on Center Street on the left. You go up Center Street, and what's the one that runs perpendicular there? Williams. And up on the left corner, White House, I think is where his son and his grandson grew up. But anyway, his grandson wrote an article for the Lehigh County Historical Society. And I don't know, 15, 20 pages about his grandfather. But I just picked out here what has to do with the Hatfield-McCoy deal, okay? Here's what he says. The early Slatington businesses, he's talking about his grandfather's businesses now, which included a quarry and school slate factory, started out as a partnership between 2 strong-willed men, a capitalist from Easton and David Williams. He doesn't name him here, but that's who it was. The inevitable impasse was reached in due time, prior to my birth, and the business was divided. The Easton man took the quarry, and David Williams took the factory. Now, here's the part that talks with Arlington. When my grandfather built his home in Slatington, the Easton man built a multi-story hotel, the Arlington, alongside to shut out the view and the breeze and left it stand idle for 20 or more years. That almost sounds difficult to believe, but you know what? I could find a dozen articles about the U.S. hotel in the Slatington News. You know how many I could find about the Arlington? Zero. I couldn't find a one ad. I couldn't find that the clubs met there. I couldn't find anything about. So I'm starting to think, well, maybe this deal that his grandson writes about, maybe that's the truth. Maybe this guy, out of spite, built this hotel, this Arlington, and extended it out. But what I don't get is, it already is out on Main Street, the U.S. So I don't get how he extended it. He would have gone right across the street. So something must have happened to the U.S. to cut it back. Maybe that fire I talked about, I don't know. Okay, that's that story going on there. All right, the Arlington Hotel. Now, that hotel, that Arlington, around 1930, the front half was removed. I don't know why. I couldn't find out why, but they just chopped off. In other words, what you see now, you see this big building in the back, sided, that wrapping company or somebody owns it. Tim Curve used to own it. That's where the Arlington was left. Now, it had a fire, which we'll talk about, and it was burned down, and they rebuilt this building now, but the front end disappeared. The Arlington was just from where the building is now back. I couldn't find out exactly why. What I did find out was that, what I did find out was that it was sold by a fella named, here we go. To the Hugh Collins. And you know what? I'm updating records for the BVM Catholic Cemetery, and there's Collins is buried out there. What you don't stumble across when you do research. But anyway, a fellow named Hugh Collins sold that corner to the Atlantic Refining Company. So hence we're going to get to a business that was there, and you already know probably who that was. Back to the Arlington. They had a lot of owners too, but one that caught my eye was that in 1909, the Reading Brewery Company bought the hotel. I can't tell you why. I mean, I think it's obvious they probably wanted to use it to peddle their booze, but their beer. But I just thought that was interesting that a Reading Brewery Company owned it. They bought it at a sheriff's sale in 1909. Later on, it was used by the Lions Club as a home. Later on, it became known as Wagner Hotel. Wagner's Hotel. And it also was known as, you should have some more photos there, Kelly, do you? No, that's later. Oh, okay, there are no more photos, but I'll tell you what other names it had. Krause's Hotel. Research Hotel. The Snake Pit. See, I see a lot of heads nodding, so now we're coming into more recent territory here. A major fire occurred in 1979, which basically destroyed the Arlington Hotel there. I have a newspaper article about that fire, so I'll just skim it. The fire at Research Hotel, which began around 7:30 a.m., rousted a dozen residents. The fire began on the first floor. An unidentified man alerted several residents to the fire, and they were able to escape. The Lehigh County chapter of the American Red Cross arrived and was set up as a temporary shelter. Were any firemen around? When was this? 79. Were you around for that?
Yeah.
What, were you in a stroller or what?
I was a junior member. I was 15.
Oh, you were? So, you see this fire business in these hotels is just going rampant. Okay. Next, what happened there then? Okay. Now, the front end of the hotel. That's my definition. The part that you see now, where that wrapping place is and that. The front end of that hotel was removed in 1932, according to a note on that one Arlington photo. That's the only source I have for that, for telling you that. It says there was removed or something was done in 1932. So remember I said Hugh Collins sold it to the Atlantic Refining? Well, Harrison Salt operated an Atlantic gas station there in the 50s and 60s. You guys and gals may remember that. You might have been a hangout. I know it was for some of my buddies. Alan Knappenberger later ran it as the proprietor. I was told, and you may know better than me, I didn't go to refine this to the nth degree, but I heard that Herbie Kern owned it prior to Harrison, and I was told that O'Reilly owned it prior, so I don't know if those are correct or not. That was just verbal. Now we have a bunch of pictures, there we go, of the Atlantic Station. See the house there? That's the David Williams house that's still standing.
Whambles, I remember going there.
That's the next one. That's the next business. Everybody knew, we had a committee meeting, I think it was a committee meeting, and my youngest daughter happened to be stopped in the house, and we were talking about what businesses we were going to cover. And I don't know if I said, somebody said, oh yeah, Whammo. I think I said, yeah, wasn't there a hot dog business there, Whammo? Oh, my daughter said, yeah, we used to go there for this and that. And everybody remembered Whammo clearly. But in fact, one of our committee members said it was a full-fledged restaurant. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but okay, let's see, who else was at that front end? Oh, I'll come, wait, where do I have the rest of them? Other small businesses that were there were Whammo's, an attorney, Mayberry. Maybe some of you got in trouble and you needed the attorney that would know about that. An auto detailing company. Presently, both the buildings, on the corner and in the back, they have signs out on them. Anyway, ID wraps. But I don't know anything about ID wraps. I just see the signs. I would, somewhere here, I want to share with you the something more about salt. I thought I did. The salts. I talked to the two of the salt daughters, Kathy Kemp and Harriet Fulgaris. And they said, what can you tell me about salts? I said, well, they said, first of all, our dad was only a proprietor. He did not own it. Atlantic Refinery owned it. And they said, we can remember one Sunday night, my dad gets a call, we're at home, and it was a company, it was Atlantic, and they told him, tomorrow you raise that price, X cents a gallon. And the girls said he wasn't too happy about having to go out there and jack up the price, but he had to listen to whatever Atlantic Refinery told him. And then they were telling me about when the gas station had a pit. Drove in over the pit and they went down and they changed the oil and that's it. She said, well, they decided they had to modernize and put a hydraulic lift in. And when they did that, they built my dad a little shanty side of the garage, and that's where he was, because in the winter time he couldn't go in. So they remembered that about him. They remembered that there were 4 or 5 gas station garages downtown. There was that one, there was the SO one, which I knew was Paul's, but there was, Ratu had a little pump or so in the back of the building, and the golf one up Main Street. Who had that? Schneck. So the girls said, yeah, but those guys all work together.